Hi everyone, welcome to this moment and the Diamond Mothering with Caroline and Lisa. Welcome back, everyone. A very warm welcome to tonight's show. And we have a really amazing guest. I can't wait to hear all of her story. She sounds phenomenal. It's the only word I can express her story. And Lisa, would you like to introduce her?
Yes, I would love to do that. I've known Sherrie for about 14 or 15 years, actually, and I'm really happy to have Sherrie Yeomans on. I was actually thinking this morning before coming on the show, I've invited her on because she's such an amazing demonstration of the feminine force. And often when we, as women, look to empower ourselves, sometimes we use masculine qualities and we don't realize how powerful the softness is and the vulnerability is. And I think Sherrie is such an incredible example of this because, I mean, I'll let her share her story, but from being a businesswoman who one day decided she couldn't do business in a major city and just picked up her kids and went on the road not knowing where she was going to land. Like, that takes guts, right? Not even knowing where you're going to. Arrives in Byron Bay, decides to make her business online so she can keep doing business and never has to go home. And that's just the start of it, right? So she's a mother and she's an activist. And in the time that I've known Sherrie, I've picked up newspapers and I've seen her chained to trees, actually fighting for something that's really worth fighting for, like, a really old tree, and glued herself to roads, just so that she can really have her voice heard to protect her environment. And really her passionate planet protector page describes it all. She's a passionate planet protector and a lover of animals and lives in this beautiful home, which one minute she can be renting out for $1,000 on Airbnb and the next minute it'll be open to the homeless. So this is someone that's really following her gut and her intuition and living it every single day. It's love in action. So welcome, Sherrie. I'm excited to hear some of your stories.
Good morning, Lisa. Oh, gosh, it makes me laugh hearing all what you've just shared. I just go, God, that sounds slightly crazy or a little bit left of centre, but it's just, it's just what you do when you're feeling from your heart, and it can be really spontaneous and it can be really, just an intuitive flow of life, I think, more so than anything, and of knowing that every step that I'm taking is definitely in the right direction. I've never had any question in that. And yes, starting from the beginning, I mean, I was a stepmother from 19 years old, and then have lived in that space as well as my own children, my two beautiful children, and then also a blended family of, 4, 6, 8 and 10 ages. So I've also lived very much in that's been a huge part of my life since I was 19 as well. So it's just living from my heart, I think, more so than anything. And it's and just knowing my intuition is always taking me in the right direction, and I've never questioned it.
And you're actually the first female harness racer too. Like, when I actually sat and reflected, like, I've heard your stories over the years, but when I actually sat and reflected, I thought, wow, it's so true. When you're following your intuition, amazing things happen.
Absolutely. It's really and having the words I keep on using more so recently are faith and trust, and knowing that no matter what goes on, everything's going to be all right, and living in a place of faith and trust. And I could go a little bit more in depth into from the beginning for myself, but basically I left school. I won't go there, but I left school when I was 14, and so sort of straight into doing what I love doing, which, as you just mentioned, was horses. And I love that so much, and it gave me an out from school as well. So it gave me an out from the system, so to speak, and to connect again with horses. Horses' hearts permeate 5 times further from their body than any other creature on the planet. And so that connection for me as a teenager, I could even say, was a lifesaver. It was so such a heartfelt connection with each and every one of those horses, and it really it took me to the next step. And yeah, harness racing driving was one of those first steps that I took, and yeah, I loved it so much. The exhilaration and the what goes on with that. You're going at a very fast speed, and with a lot of men basically around you in sulkies is how it was. And it was great fun, and a really again, I say many of my life lessons were learnt through horses, and with horses you have to be present. You can't be thinking of something else or doing something else while you're in connection with the horse. They know what you're thinking before you know you're thinking it, and so clearness and clarity is required, or before you know it, you're on your tail on the ground. And that's not where you want to be, because it's a very it can be a very dangerous industry as well. So yeah, that was lots of fun.
Wow. It's amazing. And where do you think that connection came from, or that trust, like, from your childhood? Like, where do you think that sprung from?
I think it's just, to be honest, my connection to spirit. I feel so very connected to animals. I always have been. My best friend when I was a little girl was Bambi, a little puppy. So, and I still have, I've got 3 dogs here around me now, still have 2 horses, and, however many birds on the front deck, etc., etc. So that connection to my own spirit, and to knowing that, each and every being on this planet is a sentient being, and there's the connection that we have with those, and the trees, the lands, that Mother Earth, Father Moon, the sky. It's we're all connected, and just to feel that, and to feel that connection, as I say, for me as a teenager was a huge step in getting me into the path of my life. And so it's a connection that we all have, and some of us just live it at a deeper level than others.
Yeah, it sounds like you have lived a life of flow, kind of. You're just moving with.
Say that it's certainly it hasn't come without its challenges. And as I say, the horse connection for me got me through that stage, or I may not be here today. So it certainly was a big challenge in my life, and it's been for myself, it's been so incredibly healing to get my children are now 20 and 22, through that stage of their life, on a completely different plane to where I was at that same stage in my life. And they're so incredibly empowered within themselves, knowing that they're taking the right steps, but with knowing that someone's really got their back no matter what they're doing. And my daughter said to me recently, I'm like, I think I could do anything, and you would say that, Mum, that's okay. Throughout my life, the thing has been with the kids is that's okay. It's all okay. And it is all okay. And to know that there's never really a problem there, because there isn't. Whatever's rolling along is either a lesson or, taking us to the next step, and, all is well. That's a reality. And but yeah, certainly I've had, a number of really big things that have happened, partly being one of the documentaries I was on as well, a little bit later in my life as well. And that is life. So it certainly hasn't come without massive challenges, and without those I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have the power behind me. But the initial thanks is to the horses, because they taught me so much.
Wow. That's beautiful.
It's amazing. And that when you talked about that challenge, I remember you sharing with me that when you were younger you had, and I can't quite recall the details, but you actually got really, really sick, and you ended up making a documentary about it because you got so sick from this medication that you were prescribed. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and just how that sort of informed your life as well?
So I was traveling overseas to Africa, and I took a medication for anti-malaria, which was called Lariam, or mefloquine, it's also known as. And unknowingly, I took that they've said, okay, consequences can be 1 in 140,000 people can be affected by this. Well, the end result was 1 in 140 people are actually affected by taking it. And I was severely affected by taking it. The tiniest of little tablets, and within a matter of a few hours of really taking the first one, and that really changed my life for 3.5 years. While I was in Africa, I had I could barely breathe. I had massive panic attacks, suicidal depression, hallucinations, delusions, psychosis. As soon as I returned to Australia, my blood pressure was 240. I was sent to Fairfield Infectious Diseases Hospital because they thought that I had malaria, and they came back with no, it's mefloquine toxicity. And I then spent the next 3.5 years trying to get well. And I was suggested to, class actions and all sorts of things. And I went, that's not where I'm at. I just want a positive out of this situation. And I ended up connecting with 2 other Australians, and we were on SBS Insight sharing our stories of what had occurred. At the same time, the Australian Army half of them were taking mefloquine and half of them weren't. There's, to this day, thousands of litigation happening for people that basically lost massive parts of their lives because of taking this medication. So that was huge for me. I was still trying to run a business, just bought a new property with my partner. It was a huge time. It was at a time when I really wanted to have children, and they kept saying, you cannot have children, you cannot have children, you cannot have children. It was a really, really incredibly difficult time of my life. And I'm very grateful to my partner at that time, Trevor, for the love and support that he gave me. And I'm also so grateful to my son, as I've since been able to share, because finally, after 3.5 years, I became pregnant. And as I said to Cooper, when he was going through a really, the teenage difficult time of feeling depressed, of saying, you know what, this occurred with me, and then I popped out the other side, and you were my savior in that. And he really was. And I've never gone back to that place ever since, and then obviously flowed on to my beautiful daughter, Tian. And I've just been, I could say, pretty much been in this love bubble of motherhood ever since, so so that was a huge part in my life. And again, a time when I didn't know if I would get through it or not. It was an exceptionally difficult time. But again, through that strength, empowerment, and joy on the other side. And without these situations, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it sounds like you've gained so much from that. You've kind of, you've got a lot of power from that period in your life.
Through darkness, there will always be light. Yes.
Yeah.
And just getting through that.
I was just going to say, and also being able to relate to others, like you're very compassionate where other people are at, and that's something that I see in you often is the work that you do for others, and the open house, and the generosity, not with abandonment of self. Like sometimes I think that we can get stuck as women in this, I have to fix, or you abandon yourself or sacrifice yourself to help others, and I don't see you doing that. I see you just holding a beautiful space for people that really need help.
The most beautiful thing I believe in life is giving, and whether that's to your children, or to others, there's no question that is the most beautiful thing in the world to be doing. And what I receive in my giving is above and beyond what you can ever imagine, and it's certainly not one-sided in any way or form. It's sometimes I go, oh my God, I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling, because I feel so much gratitude in whatever the situation may be, whether it's for a tree, a dog on the side of the road that's lost its owner, or someone who's struggling and in between houses, or whatever's going on with the people staying here. And I've received so much joy from those situations, each and every one of them. And, my children have obviously just lived in that and seen that. And I feel much appreciation that they too have those similar sort of experiences in their life of compassion for other people.
Mm.
Yeah.
What would you say about trust too? Like, just having the trust when you connect with people that you don't know that might be homeless. And like, I've known you to walk up to people and be really generous. And a lot of people hold back from helping others. But I've not noticed you doing that. And I think that to me is part of this real, the trust and the clarity of, yep, this is a safe space. This is actually something I can do.
Absolutely. Look, I don't never question myself. I never second guess. And a few people are like, oh gosh, blah blah, and I don't even second guess myself. It's just what happens. And intuitively, again, the people that I invite in, it's there's just no question in it. Again, it's from being in connection with myself and my own spirit. There's very few times I could say I've lived without any regrets. And each and every time there's the beautiful sharing of the flow of life and the giving and receiving of whatever it is that it may be doing. And it's whether that's inviting people in or on the street or dancing or connecting in whatever way it is. It's just how it is. So it's faith and trust in my own ability to do what is the best thing to do for humanity and the planet, always.
That's wonderful.
Because each and everyone who comes in here, like I've have a many pages that I share of how to live the most environmentally conscious life. And that's from, the minute you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed at night, and, as to who you bank with, what sort of car you drive. If you even drive a car, you might decide to hitchhike. That's, an incredibly, environmentally way of getting around. So it's, all of that is shared with everyone who comes in here as well. And it's, I love that because, they might just take one little bit away from it, which is maybe like what I've done this morning, what I do every morning, wake up, light my incense, put on my essential oils and breathe it in, and filling myself up in that place before I even think to start the day. It's good.
That's gorgeous. It's fantastic. But it sounds, I suppose you come across so confident, so, and strong. So it's such a great example of the feminine force that we're trying to say, that, there's that beautiful softness and inflow and trust, but yet, very, like, I love what you're saying about not second guessing yourself, because so many women do that all the time, make a decision and then they backtrack. Oh, I'm not too sure about that, or should I have done that, whatever, and, it's that building that confidence. And I think that's something that is unique about using that feminine force, that you have clarity and you have direction and you have, confidence, that's very, very, very strong, even though you have that softness and that compassion. Absolutely. And that caring. It's a fantastic balance, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, too true. And it is, I say our strength comes from where our vulnerability lies. And so, my life isn't about coming from a place of ego to get anything, or for me to be anything. It comes from a place of love, and it's a vastly different energy that it comes from. And definitely being in our vulnerability and in our gentleness is our power and our strength. And it's never comes from a place of ego. Basically, I study Tantra and have lived a tantric life, and I say it's living in love. And everything that we do comes from a place of love. And one situation, like my daughter at one stage, for instance, wouldn't get on the bus in the morning, or we were always late, or there was something happening, and I'm just like, there's no forcing a situation like that. And so I think she had a couple of days where she missed the bus, and I'm like, okay, you've missed the bus, you're just at home. And then I thought, gosh, I've got to think this through a bit more. And I ended up saying, okay, well, how about we plait your hair in the morning before you get on the bus? Well, the whole thing completely changed. She's getting her hair plaited. She jumped on the bus every day, and from there forward. And it's just, I see also giving ourselves the time to, sit back and reflect of how to go around, life. parenting as well thrown in there in a more sensible way. And probably, if anything, you know, these days in the lives that many live, thankfully I don't, from when I walked away from everything, you know, 15 odd years ago, or even then it wasn't that way, to be honest, but of giving ourselves the time to, you know, really sit and be the best we can be, to then for that to flow on to, you know, our children and our families and everyone else around us. And time is such a big thing, and that is something that I've always given myself. Even when I was running a business in the building industry in Melbourne, and I never opened the shop until 10 o'clock in the morning, and people just had to wait. It's just, you know, I had things to do, you know.
That's just me. I like that.
Good, you know, that's fine. So it worked, and it continues to work to this day, 35 years on, you know, nearly to the day when I started my business. So when I started my business when I was 21. So it's, you know, again, it's all that thing of faith and trust in ourselves, and of, you know, following our intuition, and and knowing all is well. And if there's along the way, then hey, you know, that's supposed to happen for our greatest learning, and you know, it flows on to the next step.
Yeah, wow. I love that solution, because we often talk about that, how when you come back into your feminine force, the flow actually gives you these solutions that you would never have been able to think of yourself, like plaiting hair to get your daughter on the bus on time. Like, it's like that is such a great example of how it works, because I've had situations like that too. Like, these things just drop in and you go, oh, actually, that's great. And it works. You know,
the simplicity of life, hey, it is actually that simple, and sometimes we make it really complicated, and really is quite simple.
Actually what was happening there, that she probably needed a little bit of connection, a bit of TLC, you know, and to be connected to you before she went to school. So braiding her hair,
too true. And also it was heading towards a power struggle, and like, you're never going to win a power struggle. It was like, you want me on the bus? I don't want to be on the bus. It's just like, I'm never going to win that, and I would never want to win that, you know. So to go around it in a different way, but also time and connection as well. That's it. And, you know, with obviously running, as I'm saying, to give ourselves time to think that through. But with running a business, having two children, I was a single mum from when my daughter was 11 months old and my son was 2. So I've been a single mum for the bulk of the time as well, but I'm also have a fantastic relationship with their dad. So we've co-parented from 2 different states throughout most of that time, not the first 4 years, but after that time as well. So it's always been the juggle of life. So exactly, time is not always that free flowing. So too true.
And it's like little things like that, though, are great little tips for people, because I've felt like that. But, you know, I always notice when children are small and they're wanting to leave the house, I talked about this before, I think it's always like, you notice anxiety coming in with clothes and with getting just before they go out the door, like it's like, you know, putting socks on, or, you know, they really, it's just they don't want to be separated from you, and they have a little bit of anxiety around it. And you're not, you know what I mean, if you're busy and you're thinking about work, whatever, they're picking up on that as well. So that your energy is changing, their energy is changing. And like, that was a lovely solution to the problem. You know,
absolutely.
I love that.
And just what you're saying there, Carolyn, makes me think again of my daughter, of when, like, she was from when she was 11 months old, she would dress herself, and there was no changing that until, like, you know, right the way throughout. And I allowed that, rather than saying, hey, I think you should wear this. And, you know, sure, on the odd occasion she did go out naked, but that was okay. And then other times she wore her pajamas. But because I trusted in her ability to choose the right clothes, she's an empowered 20-year-old woman now who's about to head down to Melbourne to, you know, buy a new vehicle tomorrow. And, you know, all instigated and organised by herself. And she's, you know, she's working with horses, as well as doing a couple of other things that she really loves and enjoys doing as well. So, you know, again, having faith and trust, and us, you know, stepping back and not wanting to control situations as well is really empowering for, you know, for our children. There's no question.
And I think that pattern kind of, you're creating that kind of pattern and trust, so they can start to trust themselves. So even in later life, then you hope that they have more discernment about, like, you know, choosing partners or making big life decisions. Because I notice, you know, and I've just been noticing over the last 10 years, even just with, you know, children that are very obliging, you know, some kids like just go with the flow, but then that becomes a problem later on because, you know, they don't have that connection to their own knowing as such, you know, because they haven't developed it. So then they end up kind of drifting around with no direction or no meaning, kind of, you know, in their life. They're not connected to a sense of something that they feel.
Sense of self.
Yeah, sense of self, and also a sense of purpose, you know. So it kind of gets a little bit. So I think, you know, developing, or even I was thinking the other day of just how important it is to give children power in their house, in their home, in their childhood.
Absolutely.
Maybe, you know.
Absolutely. And the decisions that they make, from the clothes that they wear. And I'm blessed, you know, raising my children here in beautiful Byron Bay. And my daughter, this is another story that I love. I went to the local community school here, which is partially parent ran. And the children, you know, were very much empowered and within the school, and us as parents will get in and share various different skills that we had with the children, as well as having their normal teachers. And one day, my daughter, who's been vegetarian since she was 9 years old, they had one of the teachers showed a video of the running of the bulls, which ended up entailing in a bull dying. And Tian got up and walked out of the class and went to see the principal and said, "This isn't okay. This isn't okay, what we're being shown here." And so, you know, then there was a meeting of the children and the teachers, and one step after another, basically a number of, I think it was maybe months down the track, that teacher did end up leaving because another incident happened as well. Now, I felt so pleased that I'd chosen that school, that my daughter's voice was heard. You know, she wasn't pushed to one side and saying, "Oh, yeah, okay, but, you know, but. There is no buts." She was heard. She was empowered enough to get up and voice her concern, and she was heard. And, you know, that's so incredibly important. And so she's still heard to this day, you know, obviously. And a recent situation that happened here locally, which again just fills my heart, someone who she'd worked for previously had a tragic accident here locally, and their son passed. And Tian's basically within, you know, hours of this, they're saying, "I'm here for you in any way or form. Can I come in? Can I do this? Can I do that?" As far as working, she hadn't worked there for maybe 6 months. And, you know, it just filled my heart seeing her compassion for the situation and wanting to be there. And she's now, back there and working again. You know, each Sunday to help out, and that's in there, you know, coping with the situation of grief and running a business at the same time. So, you know, those situations, she, you know, it's just all life lessons along the way that has taken her to that point to be able to make those really clear decisions. And the same as a recent one with my son. He lives in Melbourne with his dad, and he's been there close on 4 years, and he's an apprentice electrician, and he's heading towards the end of his 4th year apprenticeship, and incredibly proud of him and what he's gone through as well. But just recently a situation happened, which a few of them had happened, with his boss along the way, and he made the very clear decision to say, "You know what, that isn't okay, and I'm leaving." And he walked away. And I feel, again, he's empowered enough of himself and trusting enough in himself to go, "You know what, I'm going to be okay. I can do this, this, and this." I might add, he's also got an online shoe company, so he's juggling as well. You know, but he's clear enough in himself to be able to make these decisions and to know that everything's going to be okay. He's, you know, he's given himself time to then move on to the next step. But he said, "No, that isn't okay," rather than accepting really unacceptable behaviour, which is, again, awesome. I'm so proud of him in that situation as well. So life, good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so good.
Fantastic.
I would love to talk about your, we're talking about the red gums, the ancient red gums trees, because I think that story that you shared with me is just like classic, like the fearlessness that I've watched in you. It's like you're just, it doesn't matter how many police swarm down on you. You're just there in your little love bubble, chatting away to them and standing up for what's right, and it's beautiful because it's just not conflict, right? And so how can you...
Totally. It's, I've had many situations like that over the years of, out at Wine Forest and here in Lennox Head, chained to the 200-year-old Moreton Bay fig, and of, again, coming from a place of faith, love and trust and just doing what, oh gosh, well, this is what needs to be done. So, hey, I'm gonna do it. And a chain always works fairly well if you're near a tree and threatening that with the media guaranteed to get them on board. So, so I'd had a little bit of practice at that, but yeah, back in 2018, myself with the property owner and the traditional custodians started the second longest blockade in Australian history, which was protection of sacred lands, 3,000 odd trees, and incorporated in that the 800-year-old birthing tree, which was, world renowned, being compared to the Notre Dame, that they were going to take the trees out. But there was, a number of situations that occurred at over the 2.5-year period of the blockade. But one of them was what Lisa's just started sharing, and we were called out to the trees on the 19th of March in 2018, and there was maybe 150 odd of us there. The powers that be stepped in and said, okay, we're bringing in the equipment now to start the process of cutting down the trees. And there was, discussion had of, what's going to happen. Will we allow them in? Because we want this to be peaceful. We want it to be, not a situation of conflict at all. And I was just sitting there feeling inside of me, just immediately going, we can't allow them to come in. We can't allow them to come in. So through numerous discussions with the traditional custodians, because clearly that's their lands and that they were there protecting their lands, we came to the decision to not allow the equipment to come through to start clearing these incredibly beautiful sacred trees. So myself and about 30 other people did a silent meditation across the gateway for about 5 minutes for the love of the land and the love of the trees. And it was an incredibly powerful purely heart situation. And it was something that I know inside of me, it was just burning inside of me of like, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. And it was an amazing moments across this gateway, and within half an hour of that incredibly powerful meditation, we were walking out 70 riot police who were on foot and on horseback, riot squads there down the dirt road chanting, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. That's the power of intention. That's the power of the woman feminine force. As well as, the connection to the land and the connection to the trees. And, love is the most powerful force on the planet. And it is what will bring us to, where we want to be and what we want to achieve. And that's a place that I certainly have always come from, never from a place of conflict. And, so that was an incredible time. And, so much goodness has come out of that, and so many amazing connections as well. So it's just the way to do things. It's as simple as that in my eyes.
It's amazing, but it takes so much courage, like the lion heart we were talking about as well. It's that kind of courage of conviction for what you really believe in as well, though.
Absolutely, exactly. And I share my stories. I run a group called Passionate Planet Protectors, which unfortunately, due to various reasons, has taken a back step. But I was reaching up to 400,000 people per post for the work that we were doing. And another situation was gluing myself to the road in Brisbane CBD with 4,500 people there, along with 4 other guys, to basically stop Adani. And that was an incredibly powerful situation, and one that, you know, many people who were following me would simply say, oh my God, we just want to be here, we want to be around you and feel your energy, because that's where it's coming from. It's coming from an energetic level, connection to source. I could go on, that, you know, that creates this power, you know, that creates this feminine power of standing in our empowered space and in a place of love, like, you know, never before. And I was arrested that night. It was the funniest of situations, and always keeping it light. Like, you know, we had conversations with the police and the police liaisons for, you know, hours before I was unglued from the road. And they basically, you know, towards the end, they're like, okay, well, you know, we're going to have to arrest you because, you know, you've remained the road 4.5 hours, you know, you've held up traffic this long. And they said, can you get yourself off? And in between, I'd asked a friend to go and get me some acetone so that I could unglue myself from the road. And he literally threw me the acetone. I caught it as the police were asking me the question. I said, I can get myself off, actually. But which is so funny. They thought it was hilarious as well. But basically, I was arrested, thrown in the back of the divvy van, doing, you know, love hearts and peace signs as I'm going, and, you know, and the fist to the sky. And I hadn't told my children about what I was even doing at this stage. And they, I sort of went the next morning, gosh, I should let them know that I was arrested. I had my little right-hand man with me, who I'll bring into the fray now, Bundy. Blockade Bundy, as he's known. Bundy was there with me, but he couldn't be arrested. So thankfully, I had friends there to look after him. But we afterwards, oh gosh, so funny. So in other words, keeping it light, keeping the energy light with the police as well. They took us back to the after however many hours, back to the police station and said, okay, out you go, stand up against the wall. And I just kind of looked at them and said, what, are you going to shoot us now or what? You know, so they've asked us to line up against the wall with, you know, love in my heart and a smile on my face. And they're like, no, you can all just go. And every time that I was there with any of these situations, either none of us were arrested or that situation happened where, you know, there weren't any charges laid. And again, it's coming from a vastly different place than, you know, than it's not coming from anger or control. It's coming from a place of love. So, but tail end to that was then we went out night clubbing afterwards, and Bundy went to all the nightclubs with me as my companion dog. It was the funniest of nights. So. Anyway, yeah, life.
I love that though, like that. When you describe that, it's like the feminine force, we talk about it. And I think this is the case for so many things in our culture. We talk about things and we all sort of know about it, and we have a head understanding of certain things. But what you're actually sharing, and what I think is really important, is it's a tangible thing. It is actually a force, or like, we just don't say feminine force as in, you know, you can tap into this part of yourself. Is like, it actually is a force that you can use in your life, and the fearlessness that it brings, I think, is just like the courage that you need to, because I mean, all of us are so as children, I was anyway, you know, you sort of taught to almost fear authority, right? And to be able to stand in your power in those situations for what's right, that takes a lot of courage and trust in this energy, and you really have to feel it to be able to do that. And I think that what you just shared, it's like, it is a feeling. It actually is it's real.
Absolutely.
You can't see it, but it's real.
Yeah, I actually think it comes from your conviction. So I think when you've surrendered, when you've connected to something that you really feel strongly about, and then you have this kind of conviction in yourself, it's like you turn on a switch. And then the force comes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you saying there, Lisa, as well, of, you know, as a child, this is how you felt. And like, as a child, I wasn't listened to. In my, you know, personal opinion, I wasn't listened to. I wasn't heard. And so in other words, for me, it's been so important throughout my entire life that I'm respected, that I'm listened to, and that I'm heard. So in throwing in that, like, I personally, you know, I didn't feel I had the best childhood in the world at all, but it created, again, who I am today, because, you know, if I wasn't listened to then when I really wanted to be, bloody hell, I'm going to make sure it happens for the rest of my life. I know that much. So it's yeah, and it has, you know, and that's something I'd say. If you speak loud and clear enough, you'll be heard. And at the moment I've started a new course earlier this year on psychic development, because it's, again, you know, connected to our spirituality is so incredibly important to me. And sharing earlier that I have studied Tantra throughout my life as well. And our throat chakra is connected to our sacral chakra. And so our sexual energy it's really important that our sexual energy is a clear channel to be able to voice what we want to voice. And that's incredibly important between, as I say, a throat chakra and our sacral chakra, that they're clear. And if they aren't, do various exercises to clear our channels so that we can voice what we want to have voiced clearly and loudly, so that we're heard for, whatever reason that may be. And I'll share something else, because I always seem to have several things up my sleeve that I share. But I think I've shared this one with Lisa. I bought a lamp probably about 2 years ago, and it's a beautiful lamp. It's from a garage sale, $5 I'll add, because everything is sustainable around here. And it's a lamp basically of the masculine on his knees with his hand in the air, with the feminine in her full vulnerability, and he's holding her from her sacral chakra, and she is then holding the light. And when I bought the lamp, I knew that was an example of exactly what's happening across the planet. And it is happening across the planet, probably right here and now, February, 2022, more than ever. And, I see it has been a time of the feminine to a degree, standing back going, no, we're awesome, we're this, without that backing of the masculine energy within ourselves, and also from the masculine, I'm sorry, it's not the same. And there is no separation between us all. But so, I share, we are returning to the gods and the goddesses we once were, with a whole new level of consciousness. And that is, the masculine being needed, being wanted, and the feminine in her full vulnerability, not from a place of ego at all, holding the light with, the backing of the masculine. And it's exactly what's happening. I'm getting shivers all through me saying it.
That is so gorgeous. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. So I've just said something similar not so long ago, about like it's a co-creation, because when the divine feminine rises, the divine masculine will as well, so it's kind of like it's bringing both forward. And I love what you said about the voice, because I have a women's group as well, and I do a one-on-one conversations with women that kind of try to give them their voice, to do it in a private place where they can kind of just, especially when women haven't seen themselves on screen before, they haven't heard themselves speak about their life, they haven't had a space that somebody might be even interested to hear that, that kind of way. So it's really a brilliant exercise and I only had actually recently heard about what you just explained about the voice there as well, being connected, to, our alignment, I guess. That I hadn't understood, but I suppose intuitively I understood that it's so important to get the voice cleared, so people, they can become confident in themselves to be able to just voice what they really want to say,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you saying that, no question. It's so incredibly important, and it's interesting. I'm just thinking, this has never come to me before, but in my instance, if there isn't something that I'm voicing about, I'm just probably looking for the next thing that I can voice about, as in stand up for, and have a voice for. And there's that's a big part of myself is having that voice heard. And it's come from various different directions throughout my life, but right now, or until recently, it certainly has been activism, that's for sure. So important. But that sexual energy, I say throughout my life, everything that I've achieved comes from, you know, my sexual energy, and that is, you know, paramount for me. It's such an incredibly important part. And sharing and teaching, as Lisa, as I've shared with Lisa previously, you know, I've studied Tantra throughout my life and live a life of love, coming from a place of love. And it's sacred sexuality is something that's so incredibly important to myself. And it's interesting in the empowerment that gives us as well in our in the choices that we make, and it gives us power to have our voice as well. And I see it's such an incredibly important part of our lives as well. And I personally see, not necessarily everyone feels that it's as important as I do, but I know for me, my sexual journey has been an incredibly important part throughout my entire life. From when I was, I'll say 16 years old, I knew it would be an incredibly important part of my life. And that's been such a big part of my life in being able to have a voice, because that's been my driving force.
And that's also creativity, isn't it? Like the sexual energy, like for me, the feeling of that sexual energy, there's no, that is the love flowing through me. That is the creative flowing through me. Like there's really, it's just so incredibly powerful. And I think especially in women, what you're saying, Sherrie, there's just so much suppression of our honouring of that and our capacity to be in that and allow it to be what it is because of how we've been brought up or what we're shown, or even like the current culture now, how it degrades all of that so much that we've come out of the purity of that energy, which is so incredibly powerful and can actually connect us to our source. We've sort of moved out of that, and it's become this transactional thing, this thing that gets sold and sells things, and you know, it's just so distorted at the moment. So I totally agree. It's important.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing about, you know, for me, creativity is, you know, paramount, but eros that you're talking about, it's the force of life itself, which is creative force, sexual force is the same thing. It's the same energy as such, you know. So, you know, if it unlocks, you can unlock it either way, through your creativity or through your sexuality kind of thing. It's all kind of one. So it's I suppose, and the voice that you're talking about as well, it's all the same. So it's like you could work with somebody, just giving somebody their voice, getting more confident, bring themselves out of themselves, then they become more creative, then they'll get more, you know, their sexuality, vitality, you know, will increase as well. And then they start, it's funny because we were talking about this I think before as well, about when you start moving into, you know, your own truth and embodying it, you become a lot more attractive to people, but then you have to become more discerning because there's more choice. So it's kind of like, it's all an evolution, isn't it? And that's where the sacred sexuality, I think, comes in really well then, because then you have more choice, you have more, and then you want to choose wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, in that space, I've never second guessed myself. It's, you know, I feel blessed to have connected with the people I have over the years. And look, I've had, you know, a number of relationships. There's no doubting that. I wasn't put on the planet to be with one person. I know that much. And that's because in my process, I'm healing, and I'm healing people in that process as well. And it's such a, you know, I'm still connected with, for instance, my boyfriend who sends me regular messages, and I send him regular messages from when I was 19, and most of my partners throughout my life as well. And there was this amazing connection of the impact. You know, we need to know the impact we can have on people throughout our lives, and how we can change lives like that. And that's, you know, I'll hear from someone who I met, you know, 20 years ago, and they will say, have you got any idea, you know, how you changed my life? And I only met them for maybe 48 hours, but I changed their life. Each and every one of us have that ability within us to change ourselves if we want to, or have that healing capacity within ourselves for others as well. And to know each and every one of us are healers, and we have the ability to heal ourselves throughout our life is, really, really important. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Amazing.
It's so true.
Yeah.
That's so good. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. This has been like such a juicy conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just like,
but maybe another day.
so much more to talk about, but it's just such a great, like, thank you, Sherrie. I just feel like there were so many gems in there of practical feminine force in action. And I think that's something we hear a lot about it, but actually what is it, and like you've really exemplified, this is what it can do for you. This is why it's so important that we get back in touch with this. And,
the many facets, because so many different people. You talked about mothering, you talked about sexuality, you talked about activism, you talked about, your connection with nature, your, sustainability, like there's so many different facets that it's come, through you so that's amazing because it meant, like you said, the impact on the world from just one person,
Absolutely. And you saying that, Carolyn, brings me to this, the last comment I'll make of, so many people say, for instance, when we're on the front line with activism and people are at home saying, gosh, I wish I could be there. No, sitting at home in our own space with the power in our heart, we can be wherever we want to be and we can move mountains.
It's fantastic. I love it. Yeah. Thank you, Sherrie. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate you coming on.
Caroline, joy.
Amazing, Sherrie. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear about 5 more hours of stories from you, but we have to go.
I would like to remind our viewers, whether you're listening live or seeing the replay, we have one more week of a free webinar coming up this time tomorrow on creating your unique diamond design. And this is how we can actually find our own feminine force inside of us and how unique it is. So we would love to share with you for 30 minutes our last free webinar. You can register on the link below. And because we'd love to really hold that sense of community. We hope we've really inspired you after listening to Sherrie. It's like, I'm inspired.
Yes. Why wouldn't you want some of that?
That's right.
Go girls. Thank you for putting this platform up here and sharing. So thank you, girls.
Yeah. You're welcome.
You're welcome, Sherrie. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing to meet you. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, really good. So thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you tomorrow, and stay tuned because we'll be doing one of these interviews every week with more amazing guests that we've chosen who demonstrate their feminine force. Have a beautiful day or evening if you're in the northern side of the world.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Bye.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
See
Bye.
ya. Love.